19th of July, 1943. A quiet Monday morning. The kind of morning where nothing feels strange or dangerous. But far above Europe, something happens that no pilot, no engineer, and no eyewitness would ever forget. Two American bomber airplanes, called B-17 Flying Fortresses, slam into each other in midair. Each airplane normally weighs about 30,000 kilograms, the same weight as 20 modern family cars. Each has 4 engines, each engine strong enough to power a full-size bus. And each airplane carries 10 men, trained to fight, trained to stay calm, and trained to survive in the freezing, thin air, almost 10,000 meters above the ground. The day begins long before sunrise. The airfields in England are cold, damp, and quiet, except for the heavy footsteps of men getting ready for another dangerous mission. Some of them try to joke. Some stay silent. Some stare at the ground and think about home. They all know that once they climb into those bombers, their lives hang by a thread. The B-17 crews have seen friends leave on missions and never return. But they also know that every mission they fly brings the war one step closer to ending. Inside a dimly lit briefing room, officers explain the target for the day. A German factory producing parts for fighter aircraft. Destroying it will slow down the enemy and protect future bombing missions. Maps are opened, flight paths are marked, weather reports are read out. Every man in the room listens carefully, even though they've heard similar briefings dozens of times. Their hearts beat a little faster, their palms sweat, but they hide it well. After the briefing, the crews walk out to their planes. The giant bombers sit covered in dew, lined up like sleeping beasts waiting to wake. Ground crews rush around them, loading ammunition, filling fuel tanks, checking engines, and making sure every machine gun can fire smoothly. The smell of oil and metal fills the air. Slowly, the sky begins to brighten. Engines start up one by one, their deep roar spreading across the airfield. The ground vibrates. Birds fly away. Soon, the entire base is shaking under the thunder of dozens of aircraft. Smoke drifts through the air as the heavy bombers taxi to the runway. One by one, they lift into the sky, each carrying 10 young men and thousands of pounds of bombs. The formation climbs higher and higher until the ground becomes a patchwork of fields and rivers. The air grows colder. Oxygen masks are put on. The world becomes silent except for the constant, powerful hum of engines. The bombers fly in tight formation to protect each other because German fighters love to attack lonely aircraft. Dozens, then hundreds of B-17s form a massive cloud of metal moving across the sky. At first, the flight seems normal. The men check their equipment, scan the sky, and stay alert. The sun slowly rises, casting a bright glow over the top of the clouds. It almost looks peaceful, but the crews know what's coming. As they cross into German-controlled territory, every sense becomes sharper. Eyes widen, hands tighten around controls. The radios grow busier with short, tense messages. Then the first warning comes. German fighters are heading toward the formation. The enemy aircraft rise from the distance, small black dots that grow larger and more threatening every second. The B-17 gunners prepare for combat. They check their machine guns again and again. They adjust their sights. They breathe deeply. The attack begins suddenly. German fighters dive straight into the formation, firing cannons and machine guns. Explosions flash. Pieces of metal fly across the air. The sky fills with smoke trails and sparks. Inside the B-17s, gunners shout warnings and fire back with everything they have. Empty shell casings fall to the floor. The smell of gunpowder mixes with cold air. One B-17 in the middle of the formation takes a direct hit. An engine bursts into flames. The plane slows down. The crew fights to extinguish the fire. Another bomber behind it tries to move aside, but with so many aircraft flying close together, there's almost no room to maneuver. In the chaos of battle, with visibility reduced by smoke and the formation tightly packed, two massive bombers collide. The impact is violent. A sound like metal snapping, engines screaming, and wind roaring blasts through both aircraft. Wings scrape and tear. Bomb bay doors crumple. One plane rises and gets stuck partly on top of the other. Crews scream. Alarms ring. Loose equipment flies around inside the cabins. Everyone expects the two aircraft to fall immediately. Bombers are not designed to carry another bomber on their back, but something unbelievable happens. Somehow, the lower B-17 remains stable enough to keep flying. The pilot pulls on the controls with all his strength. His co-pilot helps him, fighting the weight of two nearly broken machines. The plane shakes violently. The engines strain, but it stays in the air. Inside the lower bomber, the crew tries to understand what has just happened. Some men think they've been hit by a massive shell. Others think the tail has broken off. Then one of them looks up through a damaged hatch and sees part of another bomber resting on top of them. The shock is overwhelming. No one knows if the upper crew survived. No one knows how long the combined aircraft can stay in the sky. The pilot makes a decision immediately. He must keep going forward. Turning is too risky. Climbing is impossible. Losing airspeed means certain death. So he flies straight, holding on to the hope that he can somehow reach friendly territory. German fighters circle around them, confused and stunned. Some don't fire because they believe the two bombers are already finished. Others fire a few bursts, but the strange, crippled aircraft keeps moving. The pilots in those German fighters later say they had never seen anything like it. Even in a brutal war, the sight looks unreal, like something out of a nightmare or a miracle. Inside the lower B-17, the crew works non-stop. They throw out equipment to lighten the load. They try to communicate with the upper bomber, but there's no answer. They check the engines. One is dead, another is close to failing. The remaining two engines are pushed far beyond their limits. The pilot's arms ache. His eyes burn, but he keeps flying. Minutes pass slowly. Every second feels like an hour. The bomber formation disappears ahead. The sky becomes strangely quiet again. The crew inside the damaged aircraft can hear the rattling metal, the wind howling through holes, and the groaning sound of stressed wings trying to carry twice their normal load. The pilot glances at his gauges. Fuel is dropping fast. The engines are overheating. He knows the aircraft cannot stay in the air for long, but through the cloudy horizon, he sees something that gives him hope: the English Channel. If he can cross that narrow strip of water, he can bring his crew home. The journey across the channel feels endless. The plane sinks lower. The pilots can feel the controls getting heavier. The nose wants to dip. The wings feel unstable. The pilot talks calmly to his crew, even though fear sits deep in his stomach. He tells them to stay ready. He tells them they might have to ditch in the water, but they keep going. Slowly, the outline of England appears. Green fields, coastal cliffs. The sight almost brings tears to their eyes. They radio the nearest airfield, warning them about the emergency. Ground crews scramble, preparing for a crash landing. Ambulances rush toward the run. The pilot brings the plane down carefully, but there is only so much control he has. The landing gear hits the runway hard. The aircraft bounces, then slams down again. Metal breaks, sparks fly. The plane skids violently across the field, sliding far beyond the normal landing zone. The upper bomber finally tears loose and falls heavily into the grass beside the runway. When the plane stops, everything becomes silent. The crew waits, breathing heavily, listening to the ticking sound of cooling metal. Then, one by one, they climb out. Their legs tremble. Some men fall to their knees. But they are alive. Rescuers rush to the upper bomber. Sadly, the men inside did not survive the collision. The loss hits everyone deeply. These crews had flown into danger together. They had shared the same sky, the same risks, the same fear. Losing them feels like losing brothers. Later, investigators examine the wreckage of both aircraft. They try to understand how such an impossible flight was even possible. They discover that the landing gear of the upper bomber became locked into the fuselage of the lower one in a strangely perfect way, almost like a puzzle piece sliding into a slot. The angle, the speed, and the force of impact created a situation that no one could have predicted. It would probably never happen again. The investigators also learned that the pilot's quick thinking, keeping the plane steady, maintaining airspeed, refusing to turn, was the key to survival. His decisions become part of future training for bomber crews. The accident teaches pilots how to manage extreme structural damage, how to keep an aircraft stable with missing engines, and how to handle sudden, unexpected weight shifts. These lessons save lives in later missions. For the surviving crew, the memory stays with them forever. They remember every shake, every sound, every moment when they thought they were seconds away from death. They remember the fear, but also the teamwork. Every man did his job. Every man stayed calm. Every man trusted the pilot. and that trust is what brought them home. The story spreads across bases in England. Some people refuse to believe it until they see the wreckage with their own eyes. Photographs are taken. Reports are written. The event becomes one of the most unbelievable survival stories of the air war. Yet behind every detail of the story lies something deeper. The courage of young men who face the sky every day, knowing that a single mistake, a single bullet, or a single collision could end everything. They flew anyway. They fought anyway. They risked everything, not for glory, but because the world needed them. And so, the strange, tragic, and unbelievable flight of the two piggybacked B-17s becomes a reminder of what war really was. Danger mixed with bravery, fear mixed with duty, destruction mixed with survival. A moment in history where two broken aircraft became one, and where one group of men refused to give up even when the sky itself seemed determined to take them.